Moving from the U.S. to France is a pretty big deal. And somewhere in the back of your mind, there's probably a little whisper like, what if we do this and it doesn't work out and we have to move back?
Completely legitimate concern.
Right.
Even if you're 99% sure, 99.9% sure, there's still a lot of unknowns. It's a big investment of your time, your money, your energy.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about 4 reasons that we see people decide to go back to the U.S. since we've been living here.
And there's no judgment on any of these, but knowing about them in advance might help you think about how you can handle these before you get there.
And the last one, nobody thinks this one will be them, but sometimes it is, and that can be okay too.
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
Hi, I'm Jason.
I'm Raina. We are Baguette Bound. On this channel, we help Americans move, adjust, and enjoy life in France. If you want more of that, please subscribe.
Reason number 1 that people move back, they're missing their friends and family.
Yeah, I mean, this one is pretty simple and straightforward, kind of a no-brainer, because this one, you never really get used to it, and to me, it never really gets that much easier. So sometimes you might retire here, and then as a person gets older, they realize they'd prefer to be near their adult kids who might still be back in the U.S. as they age, and, advanced age. And other times, maybe you move here before you have grandchildren, and then some come along. And so, you want to head back to be close to them.
Yeah, maybe a parent gets sick and the adult child wants to be closer. And even if you love it here in France, living across an ocean means you're going to miss some big events, births, weddings, funerals. Maybe it's just your monthly book club you could never quit. And yeah, you're going to build new relationships here, but it's going to be different than having people nearby who remember how cool and amazing you were back in the 90s. So,
Not that you aren't now, but
sure.
That was a whole different scene. The one thing to think about with this is, in some ways, the U.S. is so big, especially compared to France. And I know for us, our family is kind of spread across a big area. So in some ways, moving here, if you already really only saw your family once a year, maybe, then being in France might not feel all that different. Yeah. But if you're a person who is lucky enough to live down the street from your mom and go by every day after work to see them, this might feel like a much bigger hole in your life in France. So that's just something to think about ahead of time and be aware of.
Sure. A few things that might help with that. First, get everyone on one communication channel. This is a coordination effort, but figure it out before you go. Maybe it's Facebook, WhatsApp, a monthly email, something. But before you leave, do this so that you're not repeating all the updates, all the news, everywhere, all the time.
This is one of those things I wish we would have done. I have not seemed to have been able to herd the cats after we left. And sometimes updates just don't get sent out because I have to do them 5 places. And so I won't end up doing them. Yeah. So the second thing is, put the schedule, the regular catch-ups on the calendar. Standing monthly Zoom, or maybe it's just, to see your family. Maybe it's just a weekly call for you on your calendar to remind you when the time zones are aligned each week to, at that time, every week you're going to sit down and call a friend or family, someone on the other side of the ocean that you don't want to lose touch with. Because it sounds crazy, but the months can just slip by where you think about something at the wrong time. The time zones aren't lined up, sometimes even to send a text. And then all of a sudden one day you realize you haven't talked to anyone that's important to you in your life in the U.S. in months. And all of a sudden it can just hit you all at once and feel very isolating and lonely. So.
Yeah. And third, budget for your plane tickets, not just for you to go back, but maybe if you can, for people to come visit you. International trips can really add up. So maybe plan for every other year if that works for you, but do set money aside so that when there is an event or an emergency, you can actually be there.
Yeah.
You're also going to need a bit of a mental shift here too. You don't have to feel guilty because you're unable to return to the U.S. for every single event. You're going to miss some. For example, there was a funeral that we chose not to go back for, but when Raina's brother was sick and when he was in the hospital, we knew that immediately she would have to go back.
Yeah.
And give yourself the ability to make these kinds of choices and decide that you're not going to be able to go to some things.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to end up carrying around a lot of guilt because sometimes it's okay to miss things that don't feel internally like I really need to be there, so that then you can save the resources, time and money, for the ones that you'll know, right? I'm going. Yeah. Reason number 2 that we've seen people move back is the language barrier and the isolation that can come with it.
Yeah, I think every American that we talk to is genuinely excited. They really want to learn French and they can't wait to do it.
Yeah.
So there's this transition curve. It was first popularized by Don Kelly, Daryl Connor, and their emotional cycle of change model that they developed in the mid-70s. And it lays out this pattern, and sometimes there's a really nice diagram, and we see this usually in people's language adoption.
Yeah, I was like, that's how it feels.
Yeah.
So stage one, you have this like excited, uninformed optimism, all right? You are like planning your move, you're doing Duolingo, you might be taking a class, you're thinking like, this is gonna be, like I'm working on this, but it's going to be so much easier once we're there and there's French all around me.
Once I'm in the market, I got this.
Yeah, you're like, it right.
But then you arrive and you're drowning, you're surrounded in French. It's so fast, it's accented, it's regional, it's slangy. What are they saying? And suddenly you find yourself deep into stage 2, informed pessimism, where you're like, oh my gosh,
this is
way harder than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Usually at this point, you kind of keep struggling along and then you're going to hit stage 3, which, you know, on the curve is the crisis of meaning, or sometimes I've seen it on some curves labeled the valley of despair.
That's a wonderful one.
No, it sounds bad. But like, you know, where you kind of reflect all of a sudden and be like, this is not working. Why am I doing this to myself?
Yeah. And at this point, at the lows of this valley of despair, this can be kind of an inflection point for people. This is a place where you really have to make a decision. Some people decide, I'm here, and they just make peace with their functional level of French and continue to live socially in English when they can.
Yeah. And then other people, they're like, okay, I'm doubling down. I'm going to make this the focus of my life, because that is often what it takes for a little while. If you're starting from zero, join in a French speaking association, start volunteering. You're taking, you know, all day classes, all in French, even though your brain might feel like it's going to explode, you know, practicing in long dinners and kind of push through to this like now informed optimism. Like, I know what this is going to take, but I think I can double down and do it and push forward.
Yeah. Others in this midst can also say to themselves, you know what? I don't want to struggle to communicate forever. And for whatever reason, I just don't think I can get over this hump anytime soon.
Right.
And they decide to go back. They decide to return, even if they've loved every minute that they've been here in France.
Yeah. This one can be like, I feel like this one is one that people don't like to talk about, and it's kind of hard to come to terms with because language feels like one of the few things you're supposed to be able to control in your move. And, you know, people will, I feel like there's a lot of judgment around this one.
Yeah, but learning a new language is really, really challenging. You shouldn't make this out to be less than it really is. It takes a lot more time and mental effort than I think people estimate before they get started. So even if you're really busy now, and everyone's busy, I get it, no matter what stage in life you're at, you've got 1,000 things to do, but don't wait for this one.
Yeah.
It is not going to get easier once you're here in France, maybe contrary to popular opinion, because after you get here, you're still going to have 100 new things to juggle, and you're going to be just as busy. So,
and mentally probably a little tired from all the decisions.
Tu dois pratiquer ton français. Maintenant. Start now. Just start somewhere.
Yeah, as if you're moving tomorrow, right? Okay, the next one is the reason 3 that I think people tend to move back is economic reasons. And of course, this one's a lot more likely if you're in working age in your career. Versus a retiree, because usually if you're a retiree moving to France, you've already got a steady income and you have a sense of your budget before you move, so you plan around that.
Yeah, but if you move with a job that suddenly ends, or you're on a business visa and maybe the business doesn't get established as fast as you'd like, fast enough to support your lifestyle, maybe you're here as a student and you struggle to find a paying job while you're in school, all of these things can cut your stay very short.
Job hunting in France is always challenging, and but like anywhere, relationships matter the most. So if you're here with a job, start building connections and relationships in your industry really early on. This can really help.
If you're planning to support yourself with a business here, don't wait to start that business until you have to arrive. Start it now before you move. Start it before you request the visa. Plan for that first year to be much more expensive, have less revenue than you planned for. Because if you don't, you can end up in a real cash crunch and be forced to make some difficult decisions at the end of that first year. Remember, you do actually have to generate revenue with a business here in France if you're on an entrepreneur visa. If you want to get a visa renewal, you have to have revenue. Even if you have personal savings, it's not going to help. Generating revenue is one of the requirements of those entrepreneur visas. It's not optional in that first year.
Right. The 4th common reason that Americans return to the U.S. is just never really fully adjusting to living in a different culture.
I think this one really surprises people because usually, almost always, you're moving to France specifically for the culture.
Right. But loving the food and the pace and the architecture, you know, on vacation or even extended stays can feel very different than living with all of it because some of the things you loved on visits here can feel really different when you're navigating everyday life.
That's definitely true.
Yeah. I mean, you love the idea of the slower pace and the work-life balance and the values of society around that. But, I mean, you may feel frustrated when your emails to places take several days to be returned, and that's very normal.
That's valid, yeah. And, you know, the French value tradition, which is probably part of what drew you here in the first place, but suddenly you're wondering, why this brand new thing that you've seen online, it's not catching on anywhere? Why can't I find it?
Yeah.
And relationships matter. So people pick up the phone or they meet in person instead of doing everything online. And all of that just takes a little bit more time that you may not be accustomed to or ready for.
Right. And people get frustrated and see that as inefficiency when in reality, it's just the culture exhibiting its values that might have drawn you in to start with. So it can become like these things that first charmed you at the same time might kind of wear on you eventually. And at some point you're like, okay, I've experienced France. I've enjoyed it. Maybe I've gotten enough.
Yeah, and going home for this reason is not a failure at all. You tried something bold, you've done it, you experienced something different. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And being able to say later in life, you know, when we were living in France, something, you know, this is always going to sound pretty cool.
Yeah.
Kind of no matter what stage you left at.
So I hope here is the big takeaway. Just think about each of these ahead of time. And I think we wanted to make this video because we wanted to, you know, while there's lots of reasons that people might decide France isn't their long-term home after coming for a little while, we still want to kind of normalize this, that it's not a failure. It's, you know, you can come and have a wonderful experience here for some period of time and still decide it's not forever, just like if you moved somewhere in the U.S. And, you know, that's okay.
Perfectly okay. You know, with all of this, you really just cannot know how it is all going to work out until you're here. So yes, absolutely, there's going to be a risk, you know, when you're arriving.
Yeah.
But all the best things in life usually come from taking a risk of some sort, whether that's asking someone out, what are they going to say? There's a career leap, are you going to succeed? Or maybe just moving across the world. What is it going to be like?
Yeah, I'm not sure that this decision is that much different. And we are here cheering for you the whole way.
You can do it. And thanks for watching.
A bientôt.